Welcome to Sleep Story. Let the soothing cadence of a story weave through your consciousness, lulling your body to rest and your mind to tranquility as you drift into dreams on the wings of imagination.
Zhou Yu stood on the top of the mountain, watching for a long time, suddenly looked back and fell, spitting blood, unconscious, left and right to save back to the tent. All the generals are to move to ask. All look at each other in dismay, said. Zhongbei, millions of people, the tiger entrenched in the whale. Do not fight the governor so. If the cow army arrived, such as what to do. Panicked and sent to declare the Marquis of Wu, one side to seek medical treatment. But Lu Su see Zhou Yu lying sick, the heart is worried. Come to see Kong Ming, said Zhou Yu died of disease. Kong Ming said, what do you think? Su said, this is the blessing of Cao Cao, Jiangdong's disaster. Kong Ming laughed and said, Gongjin's disease, Liang can also cure, Su said. True, the country is fortunate. He asked Kong Ming to go with him to see the doctor. Su first went to see Zhou Yu. Zhou Yu was lying with his head covered by a blanket. Su said, Governor, how sick? Zhou Yu said, heart and abdomen stirring pain, sometimes coma, Su said. Have served what medicine bait? You said, heart vomiting, medicine cannot be down. Su said, I went to visit Kong Ming, said he could heal the governor's disease. Now outside the tent, annoyed to cure. How? You ordered to please enter, teach the left and right to help up, sitting on the bed. Kong Ming said, not even days to meet the face of the gentleman. Why expect your body uneasy, you said. People have every day. How can I protect myself? Kong Ming laughed and said, heaven has unpredictable winds and clouds, and people cannot predict. You heard the loss of color is to make a groaning sound. Kong Ming said, do you seem to feel annoyed in the heart of the accumulation or not? You said. Then, Kong Ming said, must use cool medicine to solve it. You said, already served cool medicine, all ineffective. Kong Ming said, must first rationalize its gas. Gas if smooth, then breathing, natural healing. You expected Kong Ming must know its meaning. Is to say that the pick want to get smooth gas. When serving what medicine? Kong Ming laughed and said, Liang has a party, will teach the governor gas smooth. You said, I hope Mr. Teach. Kong Ming asked for a pen and paper. Dismiss the left and right. Secretly written 16 words said, want to break Cao Gong. It is appropriate to use fire attack. Everything is ready. All we need is an east wind. After writing, handed with Zhou Yu said, this is the source of the governor's disease. You saw a big surprise, secretly thought, Kong Ming really god people also. I already know what's on my mind. I only want to tell the truth, was laughing and said, Mister, known to me the source of the disease. What medicine will be used to cure it? The matter is critical. Hope that is to give advice. Kong Ming said, although I am not talented, I have encountered a different person, taught the book of strange doors and transported armor, can call the wind and rain. Governor, if you want the southeast wind, can be built in the South Ping Mountain, called the 7 Stars Altar, 9 feet high, 3 layers, with 120 people, handheld flags and streamers around. Bright on the stage of the law, borrow 3 days and 3 nights of the southeast wind to help the governor with the army. How? You said, do not say 3 days and 3 nights, only 1 night gale. The big thing can be accomplished, just things at present cannot be delayed. Ming said. November 20th as the sacrifice wind. To 22 days, sea in wind rest. How? You heard great joy. Hail and yet up. Then passed the order to send 500 strong soldiers to the South Ping Mountain altar. Set aside 120 people, the flag to guard the altar, waiting for the order. Ming said goodbye out of the tent, and Lu Su on horseback to the South Ping Mountain phase of the terrain, so that the soldiers to take the southeast terracotta altar, 24 square feet. Each layer is 3 feet high, a total of 9 feet. The next layer of the 28 hosts inserted flag, 7 green flag in the east, according to the corner, hyper, the clan, room, heart, tail, K, cloth kanglong shape. 7 soap flag in the north, according to the do, cattle, female, virtual, dangerous, room, wall. For the Zhuangwu's momentum, 7 white flag in the west, according to the Kui, Lu, stomach, Pleiades, Bai, cave, Sam, the white tiger's power. 7 red flag in the south, according to the wells, ghosts, willows, stars, Zhong, wing, square, the vermilion bird shape. The second layer around the yellow flag 64, according to the 64 hexagrams, divided into 8 positions. On the first floor with 4 people, each wearing a crown of hair, wearing soap robe, phoenix clothing, Juqua square train. The front left standing a person, holding a long pole, the tip of the pole with chicken feathers for the program, in order to attract the wind letter. Before the right standing a person, holding a long pole, pole tied 7 stars on the belt, to show the color of the wind. After the left standing a person, holding a sword. After the right standing a person, holding an incense burner. 24 people under the altar, each holding a flag, treasure cover, halberd, long organ, yellow battle axe, white banner, vermilion streamers, soap banners, surrounded the 4 sides. Ming in November 20th as the Ji Chen, bathing and fasting, clad in Taoist clothes, tricked out, came to the front of the altar. He told Lu Su, Zi Jing will go to the army to help Gong Jin to adjust his troops. If Liang's prayers are not answered, there is no blame. Lu Su left. Ming instructed the guards of the altar, do not leave your position without authorization. Do not talk to each other. Do not misspeak. Do not lose your mind and fight. If you disobey the order, you will be killed. All of them led the order. Ming slowly step on the altar, look at the direction has been set, burn incense in the furnace, water in the pot, look up to the sky and secretly wish. He went down to the altar and rested a little in his tent, making the soldiers eat in turn. Ming went up to the altar 3 times a day and came down 3 times. But he did not see any southeast wind. And Zhou Yu asked Cheng Pu, Lu Su, a group of officers, waiting in the tent, just waiting for the southeast wind, then deploy troops out. One side of the customs reports Sun Quan to receive. One guy has prepared 20 fireboats. The bow of the boat is densely covered with large nails. The boat is loaded with reeds and dry firewood, filled with fish oil, laying sulfur, flame nitrate fire-inducing substances, each with a green cloth and oil sheet cover. The bow of the boat on the insertion of the green dragon tooth flag. The stern of the boat is tied to the barge, waiting under the tent, just waiting for the orders of Zhou Yu. Gan Ning, Kanzi, Sai He, and Sai Zhong were in the water fortress, drinking wine every day and not letting a single soldier land on the shore, surrounded by all the troops and horses of the Eastern Wu, making the place impenetrable. They were just waiting for the order from the tent to come down. Zhou Yu was sitting in his tent discussing the matter when scouts came to report. Wu, whose ship is 85 miles away from the fortress, just waiting for the governor's good news. You immediately sent Lu Su to tell all the officers and soldiers under the ministries, all of them pack up the ships, weapons, sails and yards, etc. Once the order is issued, do not disobey it at any time. Once the order is given, there is no time for disobedience. If you fail to do so, you will be subject to military justice. All the soldiers and generals got the order, and all of them sharpened their fists and prepared to kill each other. Is the day, look at the night, the sky is clear, the breeze does not move. You said, Lu Su said. Kong Ming's words fallacious. Winter time. How to get the southeast wind? Su said, I expect Kong Ming must not fallacious talk. Nearly 3 o'clock. Suddenly heard the wind sound, the flag rotation. You out of the tent to see. The flag foot even floating northwest. All of a sudden, the southeast wind rose. You was horrified, said. This person has the law of heaven and earth, the ghosts and gods' unpredictable technology. If we keep this person, is the root of the trouble of the Eastern will also. Killing him as soon as possible will save us from the worries of the future. He hurriedly called out to Ding Feng and Su Sheng, the 2 generals in front of his tent. Each of them will bring 100 men. Su Sheng will go from the river. Ding Feng will go from the dry road. All of them will go to Nanping Mountain in front of the altar of the 7 stars. No matter how long or short it is, when they catch Zhu Jiong, they will decapitate him. And then they will ask for the honor with their heads. The 2 generals led the order. Su Sheng disembarked from the boat. 100 swordsmen and axemen swung open the rowing oars. Ding Feng mounted his horse. 100 archers and crossbowmen straddled the horse. To Nanping Mountain, the wind was blowing from the southeast. A later poem said, on the altar of the 7 stars, the crouching dragon ascended, and the river was swollen by the east wind overnight. If not for Kong Ming's brilliant plan, how could Zhou Lang show off his talent? Ding Feng's horse army arrived first and saw the flag bearers on the altar, standing in the wind. Ding Feng dismounted and brought his sword to the altar, but he did not see Kong Ming, and asked the guards of the altar in a panic. Answer: Chakai went down to the altar. Ding Feng was busy looking for the altar. Su Sheng's ship has arrived. To people gathered at the riverside, Horn reported, last night a fast boat stopped in front of the beach. In the meantime, I saw Kong Ming get out of the boat with his hair on, and the boat went up to the water. Ding Feng and Su Sheng then divided into 2 ways to chase and attack. Su Sheng taught to pull up the full sail, grab the wind and make. Not far from the front boat, Su Sheng shouted from the bow, Master of the army rest. The governor is invited. Just see Kong Ming standing in the stern of the boat, said with a big smile, the governor. Good use of troops. Zhu Jiong temporarily back to Xiaku, the other day again to meet. Su Sheng said, please stay a while. There are tight talk, Kong Ming said. I have predicted that the governor cannot tolerate me, will come to harm, in advance to teach Zhao Zilong to meet. General do not need to catch up. Su Sheng saw the front of the boat without a canopy, just rushed to. Look at the near. Zhao Yunbao and Arrow stood on the stern of the boat shouted, I am Changshan Zhao Zilong also. I have been ordered to come here to get the military counselor. How did you come to catch up? I was going to kill you with an arrow to make it look like the 2 families had lost their peace. I want to show you my skill. At the end of his speech, the arrow went everywhere and broke the canopy on Su Sheng's boat. The canopy fell into the water, and the boat went sideways. Zhao Yun, however, taught his own ship to pull up a full sail, and rode away on the wind. He was unable to catch up with them. Ding Feng on the shore called Su Sheng boat near the shore, said, Zhu Jiong's brilliant calculation, people cannot be reached. And Zhao Yun has the courage of 10,000 men. Do you know when he is Zhongchong Ban? We only ask for a return on it." So the two returned to see Zhou Yu. Said Kong Ming pre-appointed Zhao Yun to meet. Zhou Yu was shocked and said, "This person is so resourceful, so that I am an easy day and night carry on." Lu Su said, "And wait to break cow after. But then figure it." Yu followed his advice and summoned all the generals to listen to his orders. First, he told Gan Ning, "Take Cai Zhong and his soldiers along the south bank, and, under the banner of the Northern Army, go straight to the ground of Wulin, where Cao Cao stores his food, and go deeper into the army, and raise a fire as a signal. Leave only Tsai He under the tent. I have use for him. Secondly, I call Tai Shai Ci to distribute. You can lead 3,000 soldiers, go straight to the border of Guangzhou, cut off Cao Cao's interfax troops, forced Cao Cao's soldiers, set fire as a signal. Only look at the red flag, that is, Wu, who's receiving troops too. These two teams of soldiers are the farthest, first sent. The third called Lu Meng to lead 3,000 soldiers, to go to Wulin to meet Gan Ning, burn Cao Cao's fortress fence. The fourth called Ling Tong to lead 3,000 soldiers, intercepted the Yiling boundary head, only to see the fire in Wulin, to respond to it with troops. Fifthly, he called Dong Raider to lead 3,000 soldiers to take Hanyang and run from Hanshuan to Cao Cao's case. Look for the white flag to respond. Sixthly, I called Pan Zhong to lead 3,000 soldiers to Hanyang to meet Dong Raider with white flags. The 6 teams of ships went their separate ways, but Wang Gai arranged for a fireboat and made his pawns write to Cao Cao to come and surrender tonight. On the other hand, he allocated 4 warships to follow Wang Gai's ship to receive him. The first team led the officer Han Dang, the second team led the officer Zhou Tai, the third team led the officer Zhang Qin, the fourth team led the officer Chen Wu. Each of the 4 teams led 300 warships, and each of the 4 teams set up 20 fireboats in front of them. Zhou Yu and Cheng Pu supervised the battle on the big warship, with Su Sheng and Ding Feng as the left and right guards, leaving only Lu Su, Kan Zi and all the strategists to guard the fortress. Cheng Pu saw that Zhou Yu had a good way of arranging the troops, and was very much in awe of him. But Sun Quan sent mission to hold the military symbols to say that has sent Lu Zun for the vanguard, straight to Huang ground into the army, Wu Ho for the back. You also sent people to the West Mountain firecrackers, South Ping Mountain to raise the flag, each ready to stop, just waiting for dusk move. The words are divided into 2, and said Liu Zhuandi and Xiaku special waiting for Kong Ming back, suddenly saw a group of ships too. Is the son of Liu Che to explore the news. Zhuandu invited to sit on the enemy building, said, "The southeast wind rose many times. Zilong went to pick up Kongming. So far do not see. My heart is very worried." The school pointed to Fankou Harbor. A sail of wine to send flatboats to come. Will be the military division also. Zhuanda and Liu Che downstairs to meet. Shortly after the boat arrived, Kongming. Zilong disembarked. Zhuanda was delighted. "Greetings," Kongming said, "and no time to tell other things. The former about the army, horses and warships, are already done." Zhuandi said, "Packed up for a long time, just waiting for the military division call." Kongming and Zhuanda, Liu Che sending tent sitting, said Zhao Yun said. Zilong can bring 3,000 troops and horses, cross the river path to take the Wulin path, pick trees and reeds dense ambush. Tonight after 4 o'clock, Cao Cao will certainly run away from that road. When his army passes, we will set fire to the middle of the road. Though we won't kill them all, we'll kill half of them, Yun said. There are 2 roads in Wulin. One leads to the southern county, the other to Jingju. I do not know to that road, Kongming said. South county is forced. Cao Cao dare not go. must come to Jingju. Then the army cast Zukong and go. Cloud led the plan to go and called Zhong Fei said, "You can lead 3,000 soldiers across the river, cut off Yarling this road, go to the mouth of the Hulugu ambush. Cao Cao does not dare to go south Yarling. We'll look at the north Yarling go. In the coming day, after the rain, he will definitely come to bury the pot to cook. When he sees the smoke rising, he will set fire to the hillside. Even if we don't catch Cao Cao, this is no small feat for Wingda." Fei led the plan and went away. He also called on Mi Ju, Mi Fang, and Yu Feng to sail their boats around the river to capture the defeated army and seize the equipment. The three of them have gone to get the plan. Kong Ming got up, said his son Liu Che said, "Wu Chang'e look at the land, the most important. Gongzi then please return, lead the troops of the ministry. Chen in the bank mouth. Fuck a defeat will escape to the person on and captured. But do not lightly leave the city." Liu Che left Zhuanda and Kongming. Kongming said Zhuanda said, "Lord can be in Fanku troops, high and look, sit and watch this night Zhou Lang into a great success." When Yun Chong was in the side, Kongming completely ignored. Yun Chong could not bear it, was loud voice. Guan Mo since the brother with the war, many years, have not been backward. Today meet the great enemy, military division, but not commissioned. This is why. Kongming laughed and said, "Cloud Long do not blame. I would like to bother you to put the most important pass, but there are some obstacles. Do not dare to teach to go." Yun Chong said, "What are the obstacles?" "I would like to see the instructions," Kongming said. "In the past, Cao Cao treated you very generously. You should be rewarded. Today, when Cao Cao's army is defeated, he will go to Warong Road. If he makes his feet go, he will certainly let him go. Therefore do not dare to teach to go," Yun Chong said. Military counselor Good Heart much. "When Cao Cao was treated seriously, I have beheaded Yan Liang, killed Wen Shu, to relieve the siege of the White Horse, to repay him. Today, I will not let go," Kongming said. "If released, but how?" Yun Chong said, "I would like to follow the military law." Kongming said, "In that case, make a document," Yun Chong said. "If you want to be released, you should follow the military law," Yun Chong said. "If Cao Cao doesn't come that way, what will happen?" Kongming said, "I will also make a military order with you." Yun Chong was overjoyed. Kongming said, "You can pile up firewood and grass in the high mountains along the Huarong path and set off a fire and smoke to lure Cao Cao to you," Yun Chong said. Cao Cao sees smoke. "No, there is an ambush. How willing to come?" Kongming laughed and said, "Do not you know the theory of the art of war false and real? Although Cao Cao can use the army, only this can be concealed from him. He saw the smoke, will be called a bluff, will certainly cast this way too. General, don't be lenient." Yun Chong received the general's order, led Guanping, Zhou Kang and 500 school swordsmen, cast Warong Road ambush to go. Zhuanda said, "My brother's righteousness is very important. If Cao Cao really cast Warong Road to go, I am afraid that the end of the release," Kongming said. Liang night observation of the Cheongseong. Fuck the thieves before the body died. Leave this favor, teach Yun Chong to do, is also a beautiful thing, Zhuanda said. Mr. God calculated. The world is rare. Kongming and Zhuanda then went to Fanku to see Zhou Yu's army, leaving Sun Qian and Jian Yong to guard the city. Cao Cao in the fortress, and all the generals to discuss, just waiting for a Huanggai news. That day, the southeast wind is very tight. Cheng Yu into Cao Cao said, "Today, the southeast wind. It is advisable to be on guard." Cao Cao laughed and said, "The winter solstice, a son is born. to come back when, and no southeast wind. How strange, the sergeant suddenly reported that a small boat came to the east of the river, said there is a secret book of Huanggai. Cao urgently called into. He presented the book. In the book, he said, Zhou Yu's defense is very tight, so I have no way to get out of it. Now, there is a new shipment of grain from Poying Lake, and Zhou Yu sent Guy on sentry duty, so it is convenient for him. Zhou Yu has sent Guy to patrol the lake, so it is convenient for him to do so. He should kill the famous general of Zhongdong and offer his head to surrender. Tonight, at the second watch of the night, the ship with the green dragon's tooth flag will be the grain ship Fuck Happy. So with all the generals to the water fortress in the big boat, watching Huanggai ship too. Let's talk about Zhongdong. It's getting late. Zhou Yu called outside, made the soldiers tie down, and called, not guilty, you said. What kind of person are you? Dare to come to the fraudulent surrender. I am short of blessings to offer to the flag. I would like to borrow your head. He couldn't deny it, and shouted, your family Kanzi and Ganning have also conspired with you. You said, this is what I have made also, Siam regrets. You made to catch to the riverside soap banner flag, laying wine and burning paper, a knife decapitated Siam, blood sacrifice flag after. Then ordered to open the boat. Huanggai was on the third fireboat, wearing a mask and carrying a sharp blade, with Pioneer Huanggai written on the flag. Huanggai took the wind one day, looking at the red cliff. At that time, the east wind was strong and the waves were rough. Fuck in the center of the army, looking across the river. Look at the moon, shine on the river, such as thousands of golden snakes, turning waves play waves. Cao laughed in the wind and thought he was proud of himself. Suddenly a military pointing said, Jiangnan hidden a cluster of sail mantle. Make the wind and come. Cao looked at them from a height. The report said, all of them have green dragon and teeth flags. Inside there is a large flag, written on the name of the pioneer Huanggai. Cao laughed and said, the public replies are coming down. This is heaven helping me. The ship is approaching. Chengyu watched for a long time, said Drill said. The ship must be fraud. And do not teach close to the fortress, Fuck said. How do I know? Chengyu said. Grain in the boat. The boat must be stable. Now look at the boat, light and floating. What's more, tonight the southeast wind is very tight. If there is a fraud, how can I face it? Cao realized. Then asked, who will stop it? When Liu said, I'm quite familiar with the water. I would like to go. Words, jumped off the boat. With a finger, more than 10 cruisers, with Wenjin boat out. Haya stood in the bow, shouting, Prime Minister's order. The south boat, and not close to the fortress. On the center of the river to throw, the troops shouted, get off the canopy. Before the words were finished, the bowstring sounded. Wen Yu was shot by an arrow in his left arm and fell into the boat. The ship was in chaos, each running back. The south boat was 2 miles away from the fortress. Huanggai with a sword a move, the front boat a fire. Fire while the wind is powerful. The wine to help the fire. The ship like an arrow. Smoke and flames rise to the sky. 20 fireboats crashed into the water fortress. Cao Jai in the ship a moment all over, and was locked by the iron ring. There is no place to escape. The river cannon sounded. The 4 fireboats arrived, but saw the 3 rivers. The fire flew by the wind, a school of red, the sky to the ground. Cao looked back at the shore camp. A few smoke and fire. Huanggai jumped on the boat, behind several people driving boats, smoke and fire, to find Cao. When Cao saw that the situation was urgent, he was about to jump ashore, but suddenly Zhong Liao drove a small boat and helped Cao out of the boat. and the big boat had already caught fire. Zhong Liao and a dozen other men protected Cao Cao and flew to the shore. Wang Gai saw the man in the reddish-red robe disembarking and expected it to be Cao Cao, so he urged his boat to move in quickly, carrying a sharp blade in his hand and shouting, "Cao Cao, don't go away. Wang Gai is here." Cao Cao screamed bitterly. Zhong Liao took a bow and arrow, and when he saw that Wang Gai was nearer, he shot an arrow at him. At this time, the wind is very loud. Wang Gai in the firelight, where to hear the bowstring sound. He was hit in the shoulder and fell into the water. Precisely when the fire was in full bloom, he was hit by the water, and after the rod sore was healed, he suffered from the gold sore. I don't know how Wang Gai's life will be. Let's see the details below. That night Zhong Liao shot Wang Gai into the water, saved Cao Cao, landed on the shore, looking for a horses to go. The army is being in chaos. Han Dang smoke and fire to attack the water fortress. Suddenly heard the soldiers reported, after the tip of the rudder on a person, called General Table Word. Han Dang listened carefully, but heard the high call righteousness to save me. When said, this Wang Gongfu also, I taught him to save him in a hurry. Wang Gai was wounded by an arrow, biting out the arrow shaft, and the arrow was trapped in the flesh. Han Dang rushed to take off the wet clothes. With a knife plucked out the arrow, pulling the flag bundle, take off their own robes, and Wang Gai wore, the first to make the other boat back to the big fortress medical treatment. It turns out that Wang Gai knows the water, so when the cold and the fell into the river, also escaped with his life. But that day, the river was full of fire roll, shouting to shake the ground. The left is Han Dang, Zhong Qin to armies from the west of Red Cliff to kill. Right is Zhou Tai, Chen Wu to armies from the east of Red Cliff to kill. In the center is Zhou Yu, Cheng Pu, Su Sheng, Ding Feng brigade of ships have arrived. The fire must be answered by the soldiers, and the soldiers rely on the power of fire. This is exactly what happened. A water battle on the three rivers, and a fierce battle at Red Cliff. Cao's troops were shot with arrows, and burned and drowned in the water. Countless people. A later poem said, Wei and Wu fought to determine the male and female. The Red Cliff building in ship a clean sweep. When the fire was first opened to light up the sea of clouds, Zhou Lang had broken Cao Gong. There is another poem. The mountains are high, the moon is small, the water is vast, and I lament the busyness of the former dynasty. The southern soldiers had no intention of welcoming Wei Wu, but the east wind had the intention of defeating Zhou Lang, not to mention the violent battle in the river. Gan Ning had Cai Zhong introduced into the depths of Cao's fortress. Ning cut Cai Zhong down on his horse and set fire to the grass. Lu Meng saw the fire in the center of the army, and also set a dozen fires to meet Gan Ning. Pan Zhong and Dong Raider set fires and shouted, and the drums sounded loudly. Cao Cao and Zhong Liao led more than 100 horsemen through the forest of fire, looking ahead to see that no place would not catch fire. While they were walking, Mao Yu rescued Wen Hu and led a dozen or so riders to him. Cao Cao ordered his troops to find their way. Zhong Liao pointed out, only the ground of Wulin is wide open for walking. Cao ran to Wulin. While he was walking, an army arrived behind him and shouted, Cao's traitors are not leaving. In the firelight, Lu Meng's flag appeared. Cao urged his army forward, leaving Zhong Liao to break the back and resist Lu Meng. But when he saw the torches in front of him, an army emerged from the valley, shouting, Ling Tong is here. Cao Cao's guts were in his mouth. Suddenly, an army arrived from a slanting angle, shouting, Don't panic, Prime Minister. Su Huang is here. They fought each other and took the road to the north. Suddenly, I saw a group of soldiers and horses in front of the hill. Su Wang asked, but it was Yuan Shao's generals Ma Yan and Zhong Kai, with 3,000 troops and horses from the northern part of the country, who had set up a fortress there. They had seen the fire in the sky that night, and had not dared to turn around, but happened to be followed by Cao Cao. Cao Cao taught the two generals to lead 1,000 troops and horses to open the road, while the rest stayed behind to protect themselves. Cao Cao was a bit relieved when he got this branch of raw strength. Ma Yan and Zhong Kai rode forward, less than 10 miles, shouting, "A Puma army out." The leader of a general shouted, "I am the East Wu Ganxingba also." Ma Yan was about to fight, but was cut down by Gan Ning's sword. Zhong Kai came to meet him with his spear, Ning shouted. Kai was caught off guard, and was killed by Ning's sword, and rolled over and fell off his horse. The rear army flew to report to Cao Cao. Cao Cao is now counting on her Fei to have soldiers to save the response. Do not want a Sun Quan in Hefei intersection. Look at the fire in the river. Know that our army won. Then taught Lu Zun raised fire as a signal. Tai Shai Ci saw, and Lu Zun troops together rushed to kill the future. The only thing I could do was to look at Yarling and go. On the way, I saw Zhong He, and I ordered him to break the back. Horses and whips, walking to 5, looking back at the fire gradually far away. The drill heart square. Asked, "Where is this?" The left and right said, "This is the west of Wulin, the north of Yedu. Foxy trees, mountains and rivers are steep. Is on the horse face up and laugh." The generals asked, "Why is the Prime Minister laughing?" Fuck said, "I do not laugh at others, only laugh at Zhou Yu no strategy, Zhuge Liang less wisdom. If the first use the army, in advance here to ambush an army, such as how to do." Said yet, the drums on both sides of the shock, the fire even sky and up, shocked Cao Cao almost fell off his horse. In the oblique, an army came out and shouted, "I, Zhao Zilong, have been waiting here for a long time, by order of the military commander." Cao taught Su Wang and Zhong He to double up against Zhao Yun, and himself went off in smoke and fire. Zilong did not come after him, but only seized the flag. Cao Cao was able to escape. The sky was light, black clouds covered the ground, and the wind from the southeast was still blowing. Suddenly the rain poured down, soaking his armor. Cao Cao and his soldiers were walking in the rain, and all the soldiers were hungry. Cao ordered his soldiers to loot food from the villages and look for fire. When they were about to cook, an army arrived behind them. Cao heart very panic. It turned out to be Li Dian, Su Chu to protect all the strategists to come, play great joy, so that the army and horses and line. Asked, "In front of the ground is there?" People reported, "One side is the South Yarling Road, one side is the North Yarling Mountain Road." Fuck asked, "Where to cast the South County Jiangling to go close?" The sergeant said, "It is most convenient to take the North Yarling to cross the Huluko." Cao taught to go to North Yarling. When we arrived at Huluko, all the soldiers were starving and discouraged. They could not walk, and the horses were also sleepy, and many of them fell on the road. They were taught to rest in front of them. Some of the horses had gone pots, and some had plundered grain and rice from the villages. So they chose dry places on the mountainside to bury pots and pans to cook, and cut horse meat to eat. All of them took off their wet clothes and blew them in the wind. All of them took off their saddles and put them in the wild and bit the roots of grass. Fuck sitting under the forest, looking up and laughing. The officials asked. Appropriate Prime Minister laughed at Zhou Yu, Zhuge Liang. attracted Zhao Zilong too, and folded many men and horses. Now why laugh again? Fuck said. I laugh at Zhu Xiong, Zhou Yu. After all, not enough wisdom. If the first use the army on this place, also ambush a Puma army to wait for labor. We even get rid of life, but also cannot avoid serious injuries. He cannot see this. I am to laugh. In the middle of saying, the front army and rear army all shouted, "Fuck, big surprise, abandon armor on the horse." Many of the army is not enough to collect the horse. Early to see the four fire and smoke cloth together. The mountain pass an army set up. The head is Yan people Zhongyued. Cross the spear stood horse, shouting, "Fuck thief, go there." The army generals saw Zhong Fei, all chilled. Su Chu rode a saddle-less horse to fight Zhong Fei. Zhong Liao, Su Wang to generals. Hos also came to attack. The two sides of the army and horses mixed into a mess. Cao first dialed his horse to get away, and all the generals got away from each other. Zhong Fei came from behind. Fuck meandering run. The pursuers gradually far away. Review of the generals have been wounded. While traveling, the sergeant said, "There are two roads in front. May I ask the Prime Minister to go from that road?" Fuck asked, "Which road is close?" The sergeant said, "The big road is a little flat, but it is more than 50 miles away. The small road is Huarong Road, but it is nearer than 50 miles. Only the land is narrow and the road is dangerous, and it is difficult to walk through the pits." Cao made people go up to the mountain to observe and report. There are several smoke rises on the mountain side of the small road. There is no movement on the big road. Cao taught the front army to take the Huarong Road path. The general said, "Where the smoke rises, there must be troops and horses. Why go this way instead?" Caviar said, "Do not hear the book of war has a cloud. False is real, real is false. Zhu Liang is very resourceful. So make people in the mountain remote burning smoke, so that our troops dare not go from this mountain road. He's ambushed troops in the road and so on. I expect that has been determined, but do not teach in his plan." All the generals said, "Your Excellency's brilliant calculation is unparalleled." So he marched his troops to the Huarong Road. At this time, people were all starving and horses were all sleepy. Those who were burnt out were walking with the help of their strategies, and those who were hit by arrows and shot were barely walking. Clothes and armor wet, each incomplete, military weapons and flags, one after another not in order. Most of them were driven on the Yiling Road panic, only riding a bald horse, saddle and bridle clothes, all abandoned. It was the middle of winter when it was cold, and the suffering was beyond words. Fuck, see the front army stopped horses not to enter. Asked why. The return said, "The front of the mountain remote road small. Because of the morning rain, the pit moat water does not flow. Mud stuck horse hooves cannot move forward." Fuck furious. Scolded. Military travelers mountain open road. Encounter water stacked bridge. There is no mud cannot line of reason. Pass down the order. Teach the old, weak and injured soldiers in the back of the slow line. Strong people carry soil bunch of firewood. Carry grass transport reed. Fill the road. The strongest soldiers should carry earth and firewood, carry grass and reed, and fill up the road. The army had to dismount and cut bamboo and wood on the roadside to fill up the mountain road. Fear that the rear army to catch up, so that Zhong Liao, Su Chu, Su Wang led 100 horsemen with swords in hand, but slow people will be chopped. At this time, the army has been hungry and lack of. All fell to the ground, play ordering men and horses trampled. The dead cannot be counted. The sound of crying in the road unceasingly. Fuck said angrily, life and death have a life, why cry there? If you cry again, beheading. 3 stops were made, 1 to lag behind, 1 to fill in the gully, and 1 to follow Cao Cao. The road was a little smoother after the danger was over. Cao Cao looked back and saw that there were more than 300 riders following him, but no one in full armor. Cao Cao urged for speed. The general said, "Horses are exhausted. We can only rest a little," Fuck said. "Rush to Jingji will rest before it is too late." And less than a few miles, Fuck on the horse whip laugh. The generals asked, "Why is the prime minister laughing again?" Caviar said, "People say Zhou Yu, Zhu Jiong resourceful, in my view. In the end is incompetent generation. If you make here ambush a brigade, we are all tied up." Words are not finished. A gunshot, both sides of the 500 school knife hand set open. The leader of the General Guan Yunchang, with a green dragon sword, across the red rabbit horse, cut off the way. Fuck army saw, dead souls scared. Look at each other. Fuck said, "Since here, only to fight to the death." The general said, "Even if people are not timid, horsepower has been lack of, and can resume the war." Chengyu said, "I always know that Yun Chong proud on, and not tolerate the next. Bully strong and not overpowering the weak. Grudges are clearly defined, faith and righteousness. The Prime Minister old days have grace to him, today only personally told, can get rid of this difficulty." Fuck from it said, "That is, long horse forward." Ode to say Yun Chong said, "General goodbye." Yun Chong also bowed and replied, "Guan Mo by order of the military division, waiting for the Prime Minister for a long time." Cao Cao said, "Cao Cao's army is defeated. There is no way to get here. I hope that the general to the former love for the sake of the importance," Yun Chong said. In the past, although Guan Mo was honored by the Prime Minister, but as Chop Chen Liang killed Wen Shu to relieve the siege of the White Horse, in order to pay back to carry on today's matter, do not dare to use private interests to cancel public affairs. Cao said, "Can you still remember the time of the 5 passes? A man's faith and righteousness are important. General knows the spring and autumn annals. Do not you know Yu Gongxi chase the Z Mondi Ruzi thing?" Yun Chong, through a man of righteousness, remembering Cao Cao's many kindnesses that day, and later on the 5 passes to cut off the generals, how can he not be moved? And see Cao Cao's army in fear, all want to shed tears, a hair in the heart cannot bear. So the head of the horseback, said the troops said, "Spread out." This is clearly the meaning of releasing Cao Cao. When Cao Cao saw Yun Chong returning to his horse, he and his generals rushed over to him. When Yun Chong turned back, Cao Cao had already passed with his generals. Yun Chong bellowed, and all the troops dismounted and cried and worshipped the ground. Yun Chong became more and more intolerant. As he hesitated, Zhong Liao arrived on horseback. Yun Chong saw and moved the old feelings, a long sigh, and all let go. Later, a poem said, Cao Zu's soldiers lost Huarong, and Guangong met on the narrow road. It was only because of his kindness and righteousness that he let go of the golden lock and walked away from the dragon. Cao Cao was able to escape from Huarong. When Cao Cao arrived at the mouth of the valley, he looked back at his army, which consisted of only 27 riders. Then late in the day, already close to the south county, torches are bright, a cluster of people blocking the road. Dr. Cao was shocked and said, "My life is over." only to see a group of sentry horses rush to. Fang recognized his Cao Ren army horse. Cao only peace of mind. Cao Ren then said, "Although I know the defeat, do not dare to stay away, only to meet in the neighborhood," Cao said. "A few with you do not see. So lead the crowd into the south county to rest." Then Zhong Liao also arrived, said Yun Chong's virtue. Cao Ren put on some wine to relieve his boredom with Cao Ren. Cao Ren set up wine to relieve his boredom. All the strategists were present. Cao suddenly looked up to the sky and mourned. The strategist said, "Prime Minister in the tiger's den when fleeing, no fear. Now to the city. People have been fed. Horses have been material. Is necessary to reorganize the army and horses revenge. Why the opposite cry?" Fuck said, "I cry Guo Feng Shaoya. If Feng Shaoin will not make me have this big loss." So he beat his chest and cried, "Woe, Feng Zi, painful, Feng Zi, pity, Feng Zi." All the strategists were silent and ashamed of themselves. The next day, the drill called Cao Ren said, "I temporarily return to Zudu. Pack up the army. We'll come to revenge. You can protect the South County. I have a plan. Secretly left here. Non-urgent open. Urgent then open. According to the plan. So that the East Wu dare not look squarely at the South County," Ren said. "Hefei, Xiangyang, who can be conserved." Fuck said, "Jingju trust your management. Xiangyang I have dialed Shah who don't guard handle. Hefei the most important place. I make Zhong Liao as the main general, Le Jin, Li Dian for the vice general, to conserve this place. But there are urgent. Fly report will come. Operational allocation has been finalized." Then mounted his horse and led the crowd to run back to Zukong. Jingju original surrendered civil and military officials, still brought back to Zukong Call. Cao Ren sent Cao Hong to guard Jialing and Nangshan to prevent Zhou Yu. Guan Yunchang released Cao Cao and led his troops back. At this time, all the armies have got horses, equipment, money and food, and have already returned to Xiaku. Only Yun Chong did not get a man and a horse, and went back to see Zhuanda empty-handed. Kong Ming was celebrating with Zhuanda when he suddenly reported that Yun Chong had arrived. Kong Ming, busy away from the seat, hold the cup to welcome, and happy general to set up this world of work, and the world to get rid of the great harm. It is appropriate to celebrate from afar. Yun Chong silent. Kong Ming said, "General is not because we have not been far to receive. It is not happy." Recalling the left and right said, "Why do you not report first?" Yun Chong said, "Guan most specially come to ask for death." Kong Ming said, "Could it be that Cao Cao has not cast Tuaron road up?" Yun Chong said, "I came from there. Guan was incompetent, so he got away." Kong Ming said, "What generals did you get?" Yun Chong said, "I have not taken any of them." Kong Ming said, "This is Yun Chong, thinking of Cao Cao's past favor. Deliberately released. But there are military orders here. Had to press the military law, so he scolded the samurai out of the beheading." This is exactly what he said. "I will fight to the death to reward my soulmate, so that we can look up to the righteous name in the autumn." I don't know how Yun Chong's life is. Let's see the following decomposition.